All right, there we go. All right, so this is again how you actually break down market from the higher time frames all the way to the lower time frames for you to actually get like the accurate idea of where market is probably going to go towards to, right? So like basically like the first things you want to like know is your draws on liquidity, right? Because price always moves on your highs and your lows, right? And your highs and your lows are basically like the draws on liquidity, right? So then you have those all marked out here, right? And then you also go on again the higher time frame, right? And look for a fair value gap, right? That's basically supporting you, or a fair value gap that's basically keeping you underneath, right? As of right now, we actually do see a 4 hour fair value gap right here on NQ, which is being supported, right? And we also see that this area also is like a little mini level here where if we haven't pushed down, right? So if we break underneath this low and also inverse this fair value gap, right? We could potentially target down these lows, right? And the thing is, you don't want to enter in a trade and hoping you inverse that fair value gap, right? You want to hop in the trade after the fair value gap inverses, so then you could be like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna try taking trades to the downside, right? Basically like that, right? And again, if you enter in this fair value gap, you don't want to hop in being like, okay, I hope this supports, right? I hope all that shit basically happens, right? No, you basically wait for what the fuck is gonna be happening into this fair value gap, right? So from here, you'll actually see either support being developed, right? Or then price will just kind of like fall down and then inverse it, and then you'll find like support to, or not support, resistance to the downside, right? But right now we're on the 4 hour. You want to see basically like smaller time frame candles being developed here, right, to take it to the upside, right? Let's actually go on. Hold on. Let's actually go on ES and also mark the higher time frame confluences as well, just to kind of like also show what I was looking at on ES. So on ES right here, again, we were also having that one low, right, where, or that one area where we didn't really like, fuck me, where we didn't really like kind of push down, right? And then we also have a fair value gap as well, right? Hourly fair value gap here, right? And this hourly fair value gap also lines up with the 4 hours, so then we could just kind of have like this area. Just if we inverse this, then yeah, we could target the lows, we could target down here, right? And then potentially that fair value gap down there as well. We could target all that shit, right? Again, that's if we inverse this and if we break the low right here, right? But as of right now, we're just kind of like floating, right? And then again, we want to look kind of see if we could spot any other confluences. We could also look for SMTs, basically all that shit. As of right now, we see that we do have like an SMT, right? Um, yeah, I'll show you. I was able to spot this on the 1 hour, right? Here we see that this low on Tuesday, right, July 1st at 8 o'clock, this low was formed here, right? And when this low was formed, um, ES actually, I'm not ES, NQ came down and actually took this low, right? Whereas on ES, we created that low, right? Let me get rid of this fair value gap just because it's kind of disturbing, right? Same thing here on Tuesday, 8 o'clock, right? This low was formed, right? But ES never came down to take it, right? And then when you do have like that difference, right, that basically makes an SMT, right? We have a bullish SMT to the upside, right? We have a bullish SMT as well here, right? And now we want to basically go on our smaller time frames and now actually kind of look for the smaller time frame confluences to actually activate because we're day trading, right? We could have taken like a swing, right, on like the higher time frames, right? But since we're day trading, we go on those like the smaller time frames to actually look for all that basically to happen, right? So as of right now, we see we have this 5 minute fair value gap, right? That was rejected once, right? But we're gonna come back into it, see if we reject it again. Then we might continue lower, possibly getting rid of the SMT, right? But if we inverse it, then we could go higher, right? And if we also go on like the 10 minute to actually look for another fair value gap, we could see the 5 minute lines up with the 10 minute. And again, if we actually mark this swing lower high up here, right? If we break above, right, that activates our market structure shift, right? And then we have a bearish fair value gap here, where if we inverse this, that will activate an inverse of the fair value gap, where if we inverse this and get our market structure shift, right, we'll get our change of direction from a downtrend to an uptrend, right? And then we'll see like some sort of movement like this, like that, like that, like that, like that, like that, right? And that's basically the type of movement we're trying to like find, right? Obviously, we have to wait for these confluences to activate, right? As of right now, we already have our bias, right? Just because we're holding the 1 hour, right? We have a bullish SMT. We already have our confluences basically saying, all right, my bias is going to be bullish for the day, right? And now from here, we just wait. We got an inverse, right? We see that this black wick kind of like retraced back into the inverse of the fair value gap, right? And then that was basically your entry, right? This entry was low-key pretty quick, right? And then contracts are low-key moving like pretty like funky, right? And all you gotta do is just now place your trade, right? And then stop loss underneath the inverse of the fair value gap, or it could be like more down to here, right? However you want it, right? And then what are you gonna target? Basically your draws and liquidity, right? So it will be on these highs, right? Or you could also target bearish fair value gaps as well, right? Whatever, right? The thing is now you're trying to like find your targets, right? And then just take this trade to the upside, and you want to keep breaking these lower highs, right? And creating new fair value gaps to basically continue and support this trade, right? Right here we saw we had like a little rejection on this 5-minute fair value gap, but we inversed it, right? And then we broke above, right? And then we have like new fair value gaps basically forming, and all you really got to do is keep dragging your stop loss um, all the way up there, right? But again, if you're entering this trade and if you're planning to hold all this shit, you're gonna have to enter in 1 day contracts. Holding these on 0 TD, they're really not as worth it because you can hold this entire trade, and the second this pullback happens, then your contracts will be down like minus like 50% of like the profits, right? So if you hold 1 day contracts, this will be way better for you, right? Because then it wouldn't really like put you down as much out of profits if it pulls back down. But yeah, basically to kind of like summarize everything, higher time frame support, right? And then mark your higher time frame like draws and liquidity, right? And then after finding the higher time frame support, you basically make a decision, right? Again, if you see support develop and seeing that the call, or if you see support develop for the upside inside the bullish fair value gap, then you could play the upside. If you see the inverse, right? Or like if you see like we just sell off and then we eventually inverse this bullish fair value gap, basically our only like line of support, right? Then we could target these lows and find like the setup to the downside, right? Um, Taking it to the downside all the way to these two lows, right? And then after that, we go on the smaller time frames, right? And actually finding the setup, right? Oops. Finding the setup basically happen. And yeah, um, that's how you break down market.